going to begin by talking about plantain, which is a very versatile ingredient. Plantains go from green to black. They're like bananas, but unlike bananas, you've got to cook plantain. When they're green, they're packed with carbohydrate, and you can slice them with a mandolin, really thin, and you've got crisps, very much like potato crisps, and they're a delicious alternative. When they're yellow, they're very sweet. The carbohydrate is converted into sugar, and they're sweet. You can have that as a snack or as a vegetable addition to a main meal. You can fry them, you can grill them, you can boil, you can roast. Fantastic. Really tasty, sweet tasting. And when they're black, whatever you do, don't put them in the bin. The skins might be a little mouldy, but just peel that off and add them to flour, baking powder. If you want a savoury dish, you can add tomatoes and onions and chilies. If you want it sweet, you can add sugar and some nutmeg or cinnamon and bake that. So you can have fritters, you can have pancakes, you can have cakes. That's when puddings really come into their own.
So those little muffiny pudding cake things you did the other day, when I tried them, I thought they'd be an excellent alternative to Yorkshire pudding with roast beef, or because they were tasted so pudding, a very light pudding.
Interesting.
They would be nice with chicken and gravy. I thought. How did you do that?
Very much the same mix as the cake batter mix. You know, just vary it a little. You can have a sort of a runny consistency or slightly thicker, and just pour them into muffin tins. 25 minutes later, you've got little beauties. Very tasty.
They were absolutely fabulous. Okay. Now, okra seems to be a vegetable that's becoming popular these days. What's that?
I love okra. The Indians call it bindi, and you can find them in markets. You can find them in supermarkets as well. Have you ever felt them? They've got a lovely little furry texture. You cut them and they're hollow inside with loads of tiny little pink edible seeds, and they're very delicious. You can add them to stews. We've got a stew that's very similar to ratatouille, and you can chop them and add it to that, chop and fry them and add it to that. And another interesting that I found out the other day, they nourish intestinal bacteria in much the same way as yogurt does. So very tasty as well.
So that's good, they're tasty and they're good for you. Okay. Now, one of my favourites when I was in Ghana was cassava, especially roasted instead of potatoes. Sort of very crunchy, really crunchy on the outside.
And they're soft, aren't they?
And soft on the inside, yeah.
They're very soft. You can fry those as well. You can bake them. You can boil them. And you've had them as crisps, you were saying, or chips.
Chips, yep.
Chips, yeah. I added them. I actually bought some and added the... I bought the frozen cassava, which you can find in supermarkets in the frozen section. You can get them in Afro-Caribbean shops. You'd have to do all the peeling yourself and chopping and stuff. But I bought the frozen cassava, thawed that, grated them, and added them to scones, added them to scone mix, and they were delicious. They were really soft in the centre and crunchy on the outside. I tried the same with the coconuts as well. Got some coconut, grated that, and added to the dry scone mixture.
There was a whole fresh coconut you're talking about?
Yeah, fresh coconut, just grated that and added it, and it was very, very tasty. Nice alternative to plain scones.
And one of the other major staples that I really enjoy is yam.
Like cassava again. Cassavas and plantains and yams are all our staples. What I like about yam is the texture. When I make fish cakes, for instance, I prefer using yams to potatoes because the shapes really do hold, and they've got a very distinct flavour, haven't they? Really, really nice.
Very nice.
You can mash them and use them instead of potato when you make shepherd's pie, cottage pie. Quite a revelation, I tell you.
Now, one of the things that surprised me was what I call stinky fish stew. When I looked at the ingredients, I thought I'm never ever going to eat that stuff. But when it came to the table, it was absolutely fabulous.
Oh,
how does that work?
Well, that's salted tilapia, and you can use salt cutlets as well for exactly the same thing. Smoked haddock, smoked cod, And I combine that with bacon, black eye bean stew and our classic tomato sauce. 45 minutes later, Jeffrey, you're laughing, really tasty.
And what would you eat that with?
You can, well, I tend to eat them with plantains, fried plantain, the same way you have fish and chips, we have plantain and beans. And also, we add them to, we can serve it with gari, which is dried ground cassava. And that's another, the Brazilians eat that as well, exactly the same thing.
Now, all these ingredients, you can find, is it easy to find these ingredients?
Very, very easy. They're everywhere. They're in supermarkets now, they're in Afro-Caribbean food shops, they're on the shelves. All you have to do is get them, try them, enjoy.
And because they're staples, I think they're fairly cheap as well.
Very cheap, very cheap.
And
nutritious.
And how are you going to share all this wonderful information with everybody?
Well, I'm writing a cookbook at the moment, and all the information is on my website, www.pattysmenu.com.
Okay, Patti, thank you very much for that. It's been very interesting, and we will no doubt be talking to you again.
My pleasure.